Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 17, text number 40 onwards. So Krishna is speaking about Varnashram system. Ijyadhyayan danani sarvesham cha dvijanmanam pratigraho adhyapanam cha brahmanasya vayajanam. All twice-born men, Brahmins, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, must perform sacrifice, study the Vedic literature, and give charity. Only the Brahmins, however, accept charity, teach the Vedic knowledge, and perform sacrifice on behalf of others. So all civilized men must participate in sacrificial performances, give charity, and study the Vedic literature. So Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya. It's not that the Kshatriyas are only supposed to do fight or learn how to fight and just fight and show their muscles. No, they are supposed to study the Vedic literature as well, perform sacrifices, give charity. The best of the twice born, namely the Brahmins, are specifically empowered to lead sacrificial performances on behalf of all members of society, teach everyone Vedic knowledge, and receive everyone's charity. Without the assistance or participation of qualified Brahmins, the lower classes cannot properly study the Vedic literature, perform sacrifices, or give in charity. So Brahmins are supposed to be the teachers. They're supposed to study scriptures and teach scriptures. So lower classes cannot because they do not have the required intelligence to perfectly execute such functions. So only Brahmins can teach or perform sacrifices. You see, so they would perform sacrifices on behalf of Kshatriya and Vaishyas. It's not like just anybody and everybody can study Vedic literature and teach Vedas. It's not possible because we don't have the required intelligence. Even it is said, even Kshatriyas or Vaishyas, they cannot teach. Only the Brahmins can. When Kshatriyas and Vaishyas take shelter of bona fide Brahmins, they are able to properly execute their respective duties, and society functions smoothly and efficiently. So Brahmins are considered the head of the social system. So if we follow the head, we can perform properly, function properly. Pratigraham manya manas tapaste jo yasho nutam anya bhayameva jiveta shilarva doshadriktayo. A Brahman who considers that accepting charity from others will destroy his austerity, spiritual influence, and fame should maintain himself by the other two Brahminical occupations, namely teaching Vedic knowledge and performing sacrifice. If the Brahman considers that those two occupations would also compromise his spiritual position, then he should collect rejected grains in the agricultural fields and live without any dependence on others. Very, very strict. So sometimes they can consider that accepting charity means if we whenever we accept charity, somebody is giving money, then we are losing part of our highest credits of austerity, of spiritual influence and fame. Then we see to keep up these positions, one has to perform his sadhana very, very strictly. Every charity comes with karma. Some karma is attached to that charity. How that money is earned, by what consciousness is that earned, and if I am giving charity out of my say hard-earned money, even if it is cleanly earned, suppose I'm out of 100 rupees, I'm giving 20 rupees as charity. So whatever my bad karma, 20%, it goes with that charity. So the one who is accepting the charity should be powerful enough to destroy that karma. Or he should give some Vedic knowledge in return and then accept the charity. But sometimes Brahmins say, no, I'm not going to accept charity. It's too much for me. I can give Vedic knowledge but not accept. Fine, he can do that. He can just teach Vedic knowledge and perform sacrifice, not just accept charity or not doing anything. But even if somebody says, no, 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 I'm not going to do that either, by teaching Vedic knowledge and performing sacrifice, I'm accepting money, so I'm not going to do that. So then he should collect rejected grains in agricultural fields and live without any dependence on others. A pure devotee of the Lord should always remember that the Supreme Personality of Godhead will personally take care of him. So even if he is just living off of the rejected grains, Krishna will take care. But those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. Brahman should not become a professional beggar for his personal maintenance. In India, there are many so-called Brahmins who sit at the gates of important temples and beg from everyone who comes and goes. If someone does not give a donation, they become angry and chase that person. Similarly, in America, there are many big preachers who collect huge amounts of money by begging on television and radio. If a Brahman or Vaishnav considers that being a professional beggar is weakening his austerity, destroying his spiritual influence, and giving him a bad reputation, then he should give up that process. One may beg everyone to contribute to the cause of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but one will be diminished in austerity, influence, and reputation by begging for one's personal livelihood. A Brahman may then take up the task of teaching Vedic knowledge and performing sacrifice. But even such occupations do not bring one to the highest platform of trust in God. A Brahman who teaches as a means of livelihood may often be curbed in his teaching. So if he is teaching as a means of his livelihood, then he cannot teach impartially. And one who performs sacrifice may be manipulated by materialistic worshippers. In this way, a Brahman may be placed in an embarrassing and compromised position. Therefore, a high-class Brahman or Vaishnav ultimately will depend completely on the mercy of the Lord for his maintenance. The Lord promises to maintain his devotee, and an advanced Vaishnav never doubts the word of the Lord. But a Brahman has to be very, very strict and self-satisfied. Brahmanasya deho ayam kshudra kamaya neshyate krichraya tapse cheha pretyananta sukhaya cha. The body of a Brahman is not intended to enjoy insignificant material sense gratification. Rather, by accepting difficult austerities in his life, a Brahman will enjoy unlimited happiness after death. Means this human life is actually meant for austerity. So austerity is what? If we analyze, suppose I'm accepting or performing some austerity, say getting up early in the morning and taking bath. Normally it is considered austerity, but for a devotee it's a fine thing to do because it makes him healthy and he can perform his chanting properly. But it might be considered austerity. But austerity is what happens is because of our bad karmas and the reaction that we're going to get, we end up performing austerity. Suppose some bad karma, I get sick and I cannot get up in the morning and take bath and do my chanting and this and that. Then if I take up austerity, then I'm negating that bad karma right away. Because some physical hardship, if I go through, which I was supposed to go through because of my bad karma, and I am voluntarily going through it, then I'm negating that bad karma. So then what happens? Rather, by accepting difficult austerities in this life, a Brahman will enjoy unlimited happiness after death. Unlimited because then he'll go back home, back to Godhead. So these austerities are very, very good for us. We should perform these, some austerity. One may ask why a Brahman should voluntarily accept inconveniences to keep in keeping his body and soul together. In this verse, the Lord explains that advanced human life is meant for serious austerity and not for insignificant sense gratification. By spiritual advancement, one is fixed in transcendental bliss on the spiritual platform and gives up useless absorption in the temporary material body. One should remain detached from the material body, accepting only the bare necessities of life. The Brahmins, by accepting a troublesome form of livelihood, never forget that the material body is destined to grow old, become diseased, and die in misery. Thus, remaining alert and transcendental and advanced Brahman at the end of his life goes back to Godhead, where he enjoys unlimited spiritual bliss. So this is how Brahman is aware of his ultimate goal. So those devotees engage 24 hours a day in spreading the mission of Lord Krishna beyond the platform of renunciation or sense gratification, because they engage everything in Lord Krishna's service. A pure devotee of the Lord eats only to get strength for serving the Lord and does not accept either sumptuous or meager food simply for the body's sake. However, everything may be accepted for the Lord, even sumptuous meals. But that is the mood of a devotee. A Brahman who is not working day and night to spread the glories of the Lord should feel embarrassed to eat sumptuously for his personal sense gratification. But a renounced Vaishnava preacher may accept invitations from all classes of pious people, and just to bless their homes, he will eat the opulent foods they offer to him. Similarly, he sometimes eats sumptuously to get strength for defeating atheists and impersonalists. But that is for Vaishnava. But for Brahman, he has to perform austerities. Shilonch vritya paritushta chitto dharmam mahandam virajam jushanam. Maya arpitatma grihe vatishthannati prasakta samapayati shantim. A Brahman householder should remain satisfied in mind by cleaning rejected grains from agricultural fields and marketplaces. Keeping himself free of personal desire, he should practice magnanimous religious principles with consciousness absorbed in me. In this way, a Brahman may stay at home as a householder without very much attachment and thus achieve liberation. So, one thing is he should remain satisfied. The Brahman is in the mode of goodness. So even by accepting rejected grains from agricultural fields and cooking them and eating them, he should remain satisfied and completely have faith in Krishna. Consciousness absorbed in me. This is Brahman, not just namesake. If we have Brahman and they don't follow anything that Brahmanical standards are, then what kind of Brahmans are they? Mahantam refers to magnanimous religious principles, such as very hospitably receiving guests, even those who are uninvited and unexpected. Householders must always be magnanimous and charitable to others, being alert to curb unnecessary affection and attachment in family life. In the past, very renounced Brahman householders would collect grains that had fallen on the ground in the marketplace or that had been left behind in the field after harvesting. The most important item here is Mai Arpitatma, or fixing the mind in Lord Krishna. That is the main portion. Samudharanti ye vipram siddhantam matparayanam tanudharishye nachiram padbhyo nori varnavat. Just as a ship rescues those who have fallen into the ocean, similarly, I very quickly rescue from all calamities those persons who uplift Brahmins and devotees suffering in a poverty-stricken condition. So I very quickly rescue those persons who uplift Brahmins. Of course, Krishna is always going to take care of Brahmins and devotees, but those who help them, Krishna takes care of them also. The Lord has described how Brahmins and devotees achieve the perfection of life, and how a similar perfection is offered to those who utilize their materialistic wealth to relieve the poverty-stricken condition of devotees and Brahmins. Although one may neglect the devotional service of the Lord to pursue a material life of sense gratification, one can rectify one's position by dedicating one's hard-earned money to the service of the Lord. Seeing the difficult austerities accepted by saintly persons, a pious person should make arrangements for their comfort. Just as a boat saves hopeless people who have fallen into the ocean, similarly, the Lord uplifts persons who have hopelessly fallen into the ocean of material attachment if they have been charitable to the Brahmins and devotees. So that's why Krishna is known as Namo Brahman Devai Go Brahman Hitaicha. He's always protecting cows and Brahmins. Jagaditaya Krishna Govindaya Namo Namo. So if somebody helps Brahmins by taking, of course, Krishna will always take care of his devotees and Brahmins. Needless to say that. But if somebody comes forward and offers some charity for the Brahmins and helps them, Krishna rescues that person also. So much he is grateful to person who is helping his devotees. Sarva samudred raja piteva vyasanat praja atmanam atmana dhiro yatha gajapatir jagan. Just as the chief bull elephant protects all of the elephants in his herd and defends himself as well, similarly, a fearless king, just like a father, must save all of the citizens from difficulty and also protect himself. Lord Krishna, having concluded his discussion of Brahminical duties, now describes the character and activities of a king or a Kshatriya. So protecting all of the citizens from difficulty is an essential duty for the king. See, more responsibility and more responsibility towards serving, taking care of the population, or a better position in the responsibility, and better enjoyment is there also. But it comes with greater responsibility. Evam vido narpatir vimane narka varchasa vidhuyeha shubham krishnam indrena sahmodate. An earthly king who protects himself and all citizens by removing all sins from his kingdom will certainly enjoy with Lord Indra in airplanes as brilliant as the sun. So if he protects himself and all citizens by removing all sins, Sidan Vipro Vanig Vritya Paniyar Eva Padam Taret Khadgena Vap Dakranto Nashra Vritya Kathanchana. If a Brahman cannot support himself through his regular duties and is thus suffering, he may adopt the occupation of a merchant and overcome his destitute condition by buying and selling material things. If he continues to suffer extreme poverty even as a merchant, then he may adopt the occupation of a Kshatriya, taking sword in hand, but he cannot in any circumstances become like a dog accepting an ordinary master, because it means he cannot accept the profession of a Shudra. Shvavritya, or a dog's profession, refers to the Shudras who cannot live without accepting a master. A destitute Brahman who is suffering intolerably may become a merchant and then a Kshatriya, but may never take the position of a Shudra by working in a company or accepting a master. Although Kshatriya is ordinarily considered more elevated than a Vaishya, the Lord here recommends that distressed Brahmins first accept the Vaishya occupation since it is non-violent. See, so strict these instructions are. And Shudra, it is said, by working in a company or accepting a master. See, Brahmins don't accept any master. Kshatriyas definitely not. They are administrators. And Vaishyas, they're in business, so they don't have a master, they don't have a job. It's only Shudras. But Shudra accepts a master from any of those three, Brahman, Vaishya, or Kshatriya. So if we have a master who's lower than Shudra, then what is our position? We can only imagine. See, position is one thing, making money, lots of money is different. It could be anybody making lots of money, but that doesn't make him Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra. According to scriptures, when we have accepted our position in a company, serving, suppose in an IT industry, and we're working for Microsoft. We are serving, Bill Gates is not the CEO anymore, Satya Nadella. And he is also not a Brahman or a Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra. So what is our position? Very, very low. But Srila Prabhupada, we've been chanting, so we are Vaishnavas, or we are trying to be Vaishnavas. So that's a wonderful transformation. But otherwise, we're not even Shudras actually. Vaishya vritya tu rajanyo jivan nrigyaya padi charedva vipra rupena nashva vrittaya kathanchana. A king or other member of the royal order who cannot maintain himself by his normal occupation may act as a Vaishya, may live by hunting, or may act as a Brahman by teaching others Vedic knowledge. But he may not, under any circumstances, adopt the profession of a Shudra, means working under some other master. For Kshatriyas, it's not possible. They cannot do that. That is why when Krishna became the peace messenger on behalf of Pandavas and he went to Duryodhana, he said, okay, if you don't want to give Indraprastha, fine, just give 5 villages so that 5 Pandavas can rule over. They cannot work under anybody. So they can rule over at least just 5 villages. And of course, it's not mentioned in Bhagavatam, but mentioned in Mahabharata. Krishna said, just give them 5 houses. That's it. They'll be happy. They'll accept it. I give you my word. Not even 5 villages, just 5 houses, but of their own. But when Duryodhana said, I'll not give them even a piece of land, even that much, they can then drive a pin into, then the war was settled. Shudra vrittim bhajed vaishya, Shudra karukat kriyam, krichrana muktona garena, vrittim lipset karmana. A Vaishya or mercantile man who cannot maintain himself by adopting the occupation of a Shudra, or cannot maintain himself, may adopt the occupation of a Shudra. And a Shudra who cannot find a master can engage in simple activities like making baskets and mats of straw. However, all members of society who have adopted inferior occupations in emergency situations must give up those substitute occupations when the difficulties have passed. So this is only an emergency situation. Otherwise, they should work in their own fields. Vedadhyaya suddha swaha balyanadya yathodayam devarshi pitri bhutani madrupani anvaham yajit. One in the Grihastha order of life should daily worship the sages by Vedic study, by the forefathers, by offering the mantra Swadha, The demigods by chanting Swaha, all living entities by offering shares of one's meals, and human beings by offering grains and water. Thus, considering the demigods, sages, forefathers, living entities, and human beings to be manifestations of my potency, one should daily perform these 5 sacrifices. The Lord again discusses the duties of those in the household order of life. Obviously, the 5 ritualistic daily sacrifices mentioned here are meant for those who are not pure devotees of the Lord and who thus have to counteract the exploitations of material nature by the above mentioned sacrifices. So obviously, this is not for devotees, not for Vaishnavas. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is training householders, sannyasis, brahmacharis, and vanprasthas to engage 24 hours a day in the loving service of the Lord. So they are in a different position, as it is said in Bhagavatam, Devarshi Bhutaptanirnam Pitrinam. Anyone who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation, giving up all kinds of obligation, and has taken to the path in all seriousness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigods, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. So we don't have any obligations as such, but as a matter of setting a proper example in the society, the devotees also follows traditions, not to fullest extent, but whatever extent they can. Yadrichyopapanena shukleno parjiteno dhanena pideyan prityan nyaye neva harit kritum. A householder should comfortably maintain his dependence, either with money that comes of its own account or with that gathered by honest execution of one's duties. According to one's means, one should perform sacrifices and other religious ceremonies. So the earning of householders should be clean, honest means. The Lord here describes the religious duties that are to be performed as far as possible according to one's means and when there is an opportunity. Kutumbeshu na sajjet na pramadet kutumbavyapi vipaschannashvaram pashe drishtam api drishtavat. A householder taking care of many dependent family members should not become materially attached to them, nor should he become mentally unbalanced, considering himself to be the Lord. An intelligent householder should see that all possible future happiness, just like that which he has already experienced, is temporary. Everything is temporary. An intelligent householder only can understand this. A family man often acts like a lord, protecting his wife, ordering his children, maintaining servants, grandchildren, domestic animals, and so forth. The words na paramadet kutumbiyapi indicate that although one acts like a little lord surrounded by his family, servants, and friends, one should not, through false pride, become mentally unbalanced, considering himself to be the actual lord. The word vipaschit indicates that one should remain sober and intelligent, never forgetting oneself to be the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. So that is only possible if we study the scriptures regularly. Otherwise, we all have this tendency, I'm taking care of my family, I'm the lord of my family. Householders of the upper, middle, and lower classes become attached to different types of sense gratification. In any economic or social class, however, one should remember that all material enjoyment, either here or in the next life, is temporary and ultimately useless. A responsible householder should guide his family members and other dependents back to Godhead for an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. One should not become a false and puffed up lord for a brief span of time, for then one will remain bound up along with his family members in a cycle of repeated birth and death. So, understanding this is my responsibility given to me by the Supreme Lord, but I'm just a servant of the Lord taking care of my household life. That's how a householder should live. Putra Darapt Bandhu Nam Sangama Pantha Sangama Anudeham Vyatiyete Swapno Nidra Anubo Yatha. The association of children, wife, relatives, and friends is just like the brief meeting of travelers. With each change of body, one is separated from all such associates. Just as one loses the objects one possesses in a dream when the dream is over. So this is actually the life that we live. Everybody is just brief meeting of travelers. Or other places it is mentioned that just like in a flowing river, many times pieces of straw or wood they just come together, and if, going little downstream, the pieces just get separated, and they come in contact with other pieces of straw or wood, and just keep on going. Life keeps on going. Of course, since we have attachment over the years, we develop attachment, so it hurts. But ultimately, this is a philosophy. This is a truth. Panth Sangam indicates the momentary association of travelers at hotels, restaurants, tourist spots, or in more traditional cultures, freshwater wells and walking paths. We are now associated with many relatives, friends, and well wishers, but as soon as we change our material body, we will immediately be separated from all these associates, just as upon awakening we immediately separated from the imaginary situation of a dream. One becomes attached to the sense gratification of one's dream, and similarly, under the spell of the illusory concepts of I and mine, we become attached to the so called relatives and friends who gratify our sense of false ego. Unfortunately, such fleeing egoistic association covers our real knowledge of the self and the supreme, and we remain hovering in material illusion, futile, futile, futilely endeavoring for permanent sense gratification. This is the situation of everybody in the material world. Although we know everything is temporary, but we become so attached to to the relatives, to the one who gives us a body concept of I and mine. Without giving up material sense gratification, we cannot become steady on the transcendental platform of devotional service, and therefore we cannot relish the actual flavor of eternal happiness. Unless one becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, accepting Lord Krishna as one's only friend, who one cannot give up the hankering for temporary and superficial material relationships. A traveler far away from his home and loved ones may strike up superficial conversations with other travelers, but such relationships have no ultimate meaning. One should therefore revive one's lost relationship with Lord Krishna. We are constitutionally part and parcel of Lord Krishna, who is the reservoir of all spiritual pleasure. And our original relationship with Him is full of love and happiness. But we have forgotten that, and we're just suffering in this illusory relationships, temporary ones. An intelligent person realizes there is no actual pleasure or satisfaction for the soul on either this planet or any other material planet. Therefore, like a weary traveler exhausted from his journey, he should go back to Godhead for eternal peace as a faithful servant of Lord Shri Krishna. But at the same time, we are supposed to do our duties properly, because those duties in our family or relatives have been given to us by Krishna. Itam parimrishan mukto griheshvat atiti vat vasanna grihar anubateta nirmamo nirahankrita. Deeply considering the actual situation, a liberated soul should live at home just like a guest without any sense of proprietorship or false ego. In this way, he will not be bound or entangled by domestic affairs. The word mukta or liberated refers to one freed from all material attachment. In this status called Mukta Sangha, one no longer identifies oneself as a permanent resident of the material world. This liberated status may be attained even by one situated in family life. The only requirement is that one should take up a serious program of Krishna Sankirtan. So Sankirtan or sadhana and worship of deity and so many spiritual practices, and slowly one develops detachment from material entanglements. कर्मभि गृहमेधियैरिष्ट्वा मामेव भक्तिमान् तिष्ठेद्वनं वोपविशेत् प्रजावान् वा परिव्रजेत्. A householder devotee who worships me by execution of his family duties may remain at home, go to a holy place, or if he has a responsible son, take sannyas. This verse describes the three alternatives for a householder. He may continue at home, or he may take vanprastha, which involves going to a sacred place with one's wife, or if he has a responsible son, to take over his family duties. He may take sannyas, that renounced order, for a definitive solution to the problems of life. So one can remain at home, but point is continue serving Krishna. Yastva Shaktimatirgehe Putra Vittashna Turaha Strana Kripanan Dhirmudo Mamaham Iti Badhyate. But a householder whose mind is attached to his home and who is thus disturbed by ardent desires to enjoy his money and children, who is lusty after women, who is possessed of a miserly mentality, and who unintelligently thinks everything is mine and I am everything, is certainly bound in illusion. So, householder life, it can give one, make one progress on spiritual path also, but it can make one attached to relatives, to wife, children, and his possession. And thinking, I earned it so much, so working so hard in my youth, and now when I'm old, it's my time to enjoy. Although one may try by various analytical or psychological processes to detach the mind from illusory family attachment, one will inevitably be drawn back into the network of material attachment unless the heart is purified by Krishna consciousness. A miserly householder thinks only of his own family or community, without mercy for outsiders. Being egoistic, lusty, attached, and always disturbed by ardent desires to enjoy money and children, a materialistic householder is hopelessly bound in a web of anxiety. It's a web of anxiety, can't get out of it. Very difficult. अहो मे पितरो वृद्धो भार्या बालात्मजात्मजा अनाथ मामृते दीना katham जीवन्ति दुःखिता. And he thinks, oh, my poor elderly parents and my wife with a mere infant in her arms and my other young children. Without me, they have absolutely no one to protect them and will suffer unbearably. How can my poor relatives possibly live without me? Of course, he is not worried about the far relatives. Evam grihaksheya kshipta hridyo modadhirayam atritasthananu dhyayan mritu andham vishate tamaha. Thus, because of his foolish mentality, a householder whose heart is overwhelmed by family attachment is never satisfied. Constantly meditating on his relatives, he dies and enters into the darkness of ignorance. Andham Vishate Tamaha indicates that in his next life, an attached householder will certainly be degraded because of his primitive mentality of bodily attachment, which is called mudadhi. In other words, after enjoying the sense gratification of considering oneself the center of everything, one enters into a lower species of life. So, what is the point in working so hard for the family? If we get so attached that we enter into a lower species of life. Somehow or other, we must fix our minds on Lord Krishna and come out of the darkness of ignorance to our real life in Krishna consciousness. So this is the goal. So, as a householder or as any other ashram, we need to work on this. So thus ends the purpose to 11th canto, 17th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Krishna's description of the Varnashram system. So we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments? Okay, so you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.